Ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday. It is week 8. You know what time it is. That is right. It's lightning round. The train keeps rolling with the buys. Kevin Tompkins, Gary Haddow, Andrew Cooper. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Good man. I'm triggered by the sounds at the beginning of this podcast because we just had crazy rain up here. My parents don't even have power right now, like at all. They're staying at their neighbor's house with like a generator. So I heard
makes no sense at all.
So you're scaring me.
Yeah, it's bad. We got rain just throughout the day. It's kind of bad, but yeah, apparently these bomb cyclones are making their way through literally everything. So shit.
Yeah, the bomb.
Why not?
It'd be pretty bomb if they would cut it out.
Come on,
Bomb.com.
Really? Just stop.
Just cut it out.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna stop the bomb cyclone talk, and we're gonna talk about some good old fashioned American foosball. You guys ready?
I'm prepared.
All right. So, as is the standard fare here on Lightning Round on every Wednesday, we would talk about one player or situation we are excited to watch in week 8, one player situation we're nervous about in week 8, as well as one thing we are looking to get more information on in week 8. So, gentlemen, I'm going to see this off to you. One player or situation you're excited to watch in week 8. Whoever wants to go first. Apparently, it's never me. So.
You got it, Gary. Lead us off.
I will start. I really wanted to at that moment just say, Kevin, you probably should start. But I want to start solely because mine's the most fleeting question mark. And that's Khalil Herbert. You have to be excited to watch this guy. Against Tampa Bay, they could do nothing. And yet he posted one of the best yardage they've had, I think, all season, I'm pretty sure, against them. Like, he just is absolutely crushing it. He looks fantastic. I mean, you have to like what you're seeing out of what is a 6th-round rookie. And everyone just, thought, whatever, it's David Montgomery. He's injured. Damian Williams does nothing. People thought Damian Williams was going to be the guy coming back off of COVID. But no, here we are with Khalil Herbert. I hope he's able to stay in the Flames. I felt like he had to be put here because what happens next week or the week after when all of a sudden David Montgomery's back? We're back to a split workload. Question mark. What do we do? I have no idea. For those that don't know, David Montgomery's contract is through next year. So for your dynasty players and whatnot, Khalil Herbert has the chance to become that guy in 2023. There's no rumors of this, but I'm just going to throw it out there. You're the Bears. Like, could you just trade David Montgomery before the trade deadline to some needy team? Because people would be up on getting that guy just coming out of his first contract. So I don't know. He looked awesome. Pass game, run game. To be able to, I don't remember the last time I've seen a running back play so well when his offense was just decimated. Like
Barry Sanders.
Right.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders. Some of the times
James Robinson, maybe.
Adrian Peterson would play super well when his team wasn't that great. At various times when the team wasn't good. But I don't know. Again, Khalil Herbert's not Barry Sanders or Adrian Peterson, but in the spot, I mean, he looked awesome, and I'm excited to watch him play.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I think the most yardage, I was looking at it last week, the most yardage they'd let up to any singular per player was 60 yards. And they were actually letting up, on average, 58 yards a game. Because some of those games, like the Patriots game, my Patriots, I think we actually had negative rushing yards against them. Like, I think it was -1 or something like that. And our leading rusher had 4 yards in that game. We had multiple players in negative yards. So for him to be able to do that against that team, 100 yards against that team is pretty impressive. So I definitely like the way he runs. And if you drafted him in Dynasty, you got him for a song. So good for you.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely encouraging to watch because I cannot believe that game was the national game last week, and everybody literally had to watch that game. But he was the lone bright spot. I mean, I'm almost not sure. I mean, he was good, but I mean, I'm almost not sure if it was because Fields in the passing game was so bad that Khalil Herbert looked transcendent, but he did look really good. And that opens the door for, I think he blew by Damian Williams as far as pecking order in that backfield. So, I mean, it remains to be seen that when Montgomery comes back, it seems to me David Montgomery would make a perfect Houston Texan. I don't know why I can see him wearing that uniform, but I can see him wearing that uniform. Now, I mean, Herbert might have carved himself out a little bit of a role when Montgomery comes back. I think he certainly earned it. Another thing, too, I don't know if they are going to shelve Tariq Cohen, if they've made a decision on that yet, but he, was scheduled to come back like week 6, and I think they've just kept him on there. But they might just shelve him the rest of the season. So, I mean, Khalil Herbert, he not only did he run for 100 yards, he ran routes on 54% of dropbacks too. So, he's going to be out there. He's never really profiled as a receiving back at, Virginia Tech, but, he was out there. That's what you want.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I think, at this point with Tariq Cohen, when it lasts this long, you have to wonder if maybe there's some nerve damage issues, things like that. Like that's what happened with like Marquise Lee, some of these other guys that never really returned.
Lattimore.
Yeah, Lattimore never came back either. And I think the nerve damage is the big scary thing. So we'll see what happens there.
And one just final button on this: the Niners' rush defense is nothing to write home about, and they've had a rushing touchdown scored against them every week except for one. So
there you go.
Yeah, fire up your Herberts. Coop.
Yeah, so mine is actually so we almost always do players, but I'm doing a situation this week. Hey, because it always says player or situation, so I'm doing one, and it's Mike Evans against Marshawn Lattimore. Just watching Marshawn Lattimore, not even just this year, but last year, he's like turning into the new like Cortland Finnegan, right? Where he's just getting under people's skin and driving them nuts. And we've actually seen Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore fight on the field multiple times. Mike Evans and both of them getting kicked out of the game, right? Mike Evans walking off the field. And we just actually saw it again last week, Marshawn Lattimore pushing DK Metcalf to the point that DK Metcalf was throwing punches. And, if Marshawn Lattimore is willing to fight DK Metcalf, probably the wide receiver I'd want to least fight of anyone in the entire league on the planet, really. Like, if he's willing to do that, then he's willing to fight anybody, really. So I'm excited to see Marshawn Lattimore get under the skin of Mike Evans and see if he can, because we've seen it in the past, and that could be really fun to watch. Those situations like that, like we used to see it all the time with Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson, where it's like every time they matched up, it was like somebody's ripping somebody's helmet off. And
Aqib Talib and Michael Crabtree.
Exactly. It's like the chain game. Yeah. So I'm excited to see that. It's fun to see that from a, when it's not your team, it's fun to watch other teams get into that. And it's a 425 game, so it should be pretty prominent on the TV. So
yeah, that'll be fun to watch. Absolutely. Now mine, I'm going to go into a little bit the Miami Dolphins passing game. So as we've seen with the Miami Dolphins getting pretty much decimated at the wide receiver position, they've lost Will Fuller for a period. Devontae Parker's been in and out of the lineup. But right now, that offense is pretty much consolidated in the passing game to Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki. They are now the highest passing rate team in the NFL at 67%. So when you combine that with some consolidation between those two, it's fantastic. You got Tua Tagovailoa back too, so Mike Gesicki has been, I believe he has 4 top 7 finishes in the past 5-6 weeks. Gesicki's been fantastic, and they've also run a lot more 12 personnel too. So you're getting Waddle out there. You're getting all these other rotational wide receivers with Preston Williams, Mac Hollins, Isaiah Ford scored a random touchdown. Albert Wilson still is kind of hanging around there, but it's all going to be basically funnel to Gesicki and Waddle. Gesicki's been pretty much a top 4 tight end. I believe he's actually been the second tight end in the past 5 weeks behind Mark Andrews. So give me all the Gesicki. We'll see what happens when these wide receivers come back. But for right now, Jalen Waddle and Gesicki look like just absolute stars, and you got to ride them while you have them.
Didn't you mean to say QB1 overall to Tagovailoa last week?
That's true. That is true. It do be like that.
Yeah, he was, Gary. He threw 4 touchdowns. Yeah, that's for real.
That's crazy.
291 yards, 4 touchdowns. He ran for like 30 yards too, just on top of that. Why
It's
not?
like a really low week for QBs if that's the case.
Well, Joe Burrow threw for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's weird that that's not.
And then you also didn't have Allen. You also didn't have Herbert. All these
Yeah.
other guys too. So that factors in, but still can't take it away from him.
Yeah, no.
Say
Dak
no
Prescott
to Kevin
either.
hates Tua apparently.
Yeah, but the one thing I will say is that in this could fall into a we don't do this, we do this week, but if we had a season long something I want more information about situation, Mike Gesicki's been playing 96% of his snaps at wide receiver, right? Last week he played 60 at wide receiver, only 2 at inline, right? What happens? And that means Durham Smythe and Adam Shaheen are playing inline. What happens when they have Waddle, Fuller, Devontae Parker, and Gesicki all healthy? There's going to be a snap crunch of some kind, I imagine, right? Or
Probably, yeah.
They can't. They're not just going to roll 4 wide. Maybe they will. That'd be kind of cool.
I'd be down.
What do you do if you're the Dolphins? You have a 1-year Will Fuller, and at this point, you don't have a first. You're probably not playing for playoffs officially, and even if you do get Watson and he's able to play some games, I don't really know what Fuller adds to this offense anymore. I don't know how you don't. Again, we're fantasy football players, not actual owners, but how do you not just trade Fuller? It's a lost season. Get something now before he leaves, because do you get comp picks for 1-year contracts?
Yeah, I think you do when they leave. I think you get comp picks when they leave. Regardless, I'm fairly confident, but it all
it's
depends.
Based on aren't those mostly based on snaps and stuff like that, percentage of?
It's based on what they get paid, and then there's a percentage of the snaps they play next year, not this year.
Okay.
So with a new team that takes them, the thing with Will Fuller is though, it's you got a guy here who is super injury prone. He was really good when he was doing steroids, and now we don't know how good he is. So how are people, because we've seen it before. Alshon Jeffrey was very good when he was doing steroids. So was David Boston. So was end of career Antonio Gates. And then once they get caught, all of a sudden it's they don't have the, I hate to say it, the juice.
The juice.
Yeah, exactly. So
the irony.
There is a possibility. I mean, his trade value is pretty low. I think honestly, the reason they brought him in was just as insurance in case Jalen Waddle wasn't ready, because they wanted to compete now. I think they thought they were going to be better than they are,
Yeah.
So it's you bring them in and, you use them this year, but it seems at this point, they, like Gary said, you really don't need them. So I think if you could sell them, I would, just like Gary's saying, if you could sell them to somebody and, get something back for them. The thing is, you got to think about the way comp picks work. If, their 3rd round pick's the best comp pick you can get if they sign for a lot. Kenny Golladay is going to be a 3rd round comp pick. You got to at least get a 3rd or 4th back, because somebody probably will give him 3rd or 4th comp pick money, right? So you got to be, you have to find somebody that's willing to give you a better pick than what you're going to get. Plus, I guess you get to roll some of that money forward. I don't know. I'm not a GM, but there's a lot that goes into trading a guy like that.
Super low key Will Fuller's on my dynasty buy list. I don't care what everybody says. Dude has juice.
Yeah,
and
good, man.
That if he can get it figured out, he's good.
He's good. There's no question. I mean, I've watched him. We've watched him be very good. Very, very.
I need to get my hand on some steroids so I can be a wide receiver.
Now's the time.
Yeah. If you're watching, a guy,
Yeah, not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, not financial advice.
Juiced up. I just imagine juiced up Kevin Tompkins, dude. JB goes, the Tompkins tumble, and you just turn around and swipe your whole wall, everything off it.
Incredible Hulk. The Incredible Bulk, really.
Reasonable Kevin Tompkins turns into the incredible bulk.
The credible bulk.
The credible bulk.
I'll allow it. That's great. So now we've covered the excited part. Player situation you're nervous about, and I will go first here. I'm going to dive in a little bit of Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore. So first week of Zach Ertz as an Arizona Cardinal, and it's safe to say that he is Max Williams, as far as pretty much the snap share or target share that he was getting, routes run, everything is pretty much mirroring Max Williams. So that's not good for guys like Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore, who we saw this week in week 7. Their routes dipped. Kirk's dipped down to 70%. Moore's dipped down to about 47%. Clearly, if you're banking on these guys in fantasy, I mean, Kirk you can kind of live with a little bit, but Moore's, I mean, it's unusable. Like you can't even start this guy.
Nope.
So, those two guys in this offense, I mean, the wide receiver too is basically AJ Green, and he has to be because he's on the field all the time, tethered to the line, running, pretty much a consistent 85 to 90% of routes every week. And he takes just enough out of as far as targets week. I mean, he's gotten 6 targets in like 4 or 7 games or whatever it is. But if you're pinning some hopes on Christian Kirk and Rondale Moore going forward, unless you get an injury or just something drastic happens, I mean, Kirk is pretty much a kind of a flex play as it is. Rondale Moore, you can pretty much drop him at this point.
Yeah, it's a shame, because it's like you hope they would just go with the Max Williams injury. They just go full air raid, 4 wide, and give everybody a chance. And then it's a little more fun. It's a little more crazy. Not as great for running, of course, when you have Rondale Moore out there blocking instead of Max Williams. But,
yeah,
that was the hope. We all kind of want it to be like Madden sometimes, but I'm still interested in Christian Kirk just because he's the guy that's out there first. And then they bring him in for the 4 wide. But again, Ertz being there, it's just somebody else that's taking targets, I know. Gary, do you have any hope for Rondale Moore? Are you hanging on, or are you done there?
For the season, I mean, he's too electric of a player to not. If you can roster him and afford to, then yeah, I am. The Christian Kirk thing is so strange because Christian Kirk versus AJ Green, you're going to roster both of them and then cut Rondale Moore. Like, who has the highest upside? Rondale Moore has the highest upside, but I mean, you keep talking about like his blocking and everything. I mean, like they're manufacturing touches for him. So if you got to cut him, you got to cut him. I mean, obviously we're talking about redraft here. What are you going to do? Just hope that he blows up. But I mean, I feel like any team that's going to be 7-0 at this point, their defense is great. Their offense is also awesome, and it's because they can spread the ball around. I mean, the fact that Zach Ertz in his first game with a brand new team scored the longest touchdown of his career, like, that's just crazy. Like, I know that's probably a fluke, right? Probably a fluke, but Zach Ertz is still good. And then you still have Edmonds and Connor. It just almost, you have Hopkins, and you probably have the rest. But I do want to say Zach Ertz is somebody that, from a tight end perspective, we should be excited about him filling the Max Williams role. I don't care what people say. In the tight end landscape where you're pumped if your guy gets like 3 for 60 or 4 for 50, that feels like a Zach Ertz line for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for super high end upside, it's a tough, like you're kind of saying there, it's a tough situation. But so are the situations for Dalton Schultz, especially with Michael Gallup coming back.
Yep.
So it's a situation for Dawson Knox, being the 4th target on his team now with a broken hand. Like, I think Zach Ertz is, when we talk about those are 3 high-powered offenses, that can produce a back end to mid-tier tight end 1. And, not everyone's going to have a top 5 tight end, 6 tight end. It's mathematically impossible. So if you need to find somebody in that back tier, that's probably where you want to go. Just hope that he becomes the 3rd target on the team rather than the 4th, because that's kind of what we're hoping. That's what Dalton Schultz has been, and it's been pretty good. Dawson Knox is kind of flirting with that. He's not really getting the targets like we want, but he's getting the touchdowns. So, that's just where you got to live if you can't get a Pitts or a Kelsey, and there's only so many of those guys. So I like that. I'm definitely recommending to people to make sure Ertz isn't on your waiver wire.
I think in the business we call that a unintentional teaser, because week 9 I would put money that one of us is going to be putting what does Dalton Schultz look like as something we're looking to see more information about once Gallup is back.
Yeah, that's a fair. And I'll go to noted tight end guru Andrew Cooper here with since we're talking about high powered offenses and back end tight ends, rest of season, CJ Uzama or Zach Ertz?
Ertz for me for sure, because the thing with Uzama is he's in a similar spot, right? He's the 4th target on his team, but like you look at him, he hasn't eclipsed 3 targets yet in any game, right? Except for the one that T. Higgins was out. T. Higgins is not out; he's back. So we're talking about a dude who pretty much his upside is 3-4 targets. I mean, Ertz just came onto a team that he's never even played for, and he had 5 targets, right? Like he just blew CJ Uzoma out of the water. Like those are the targets that CJ Uzoma got when the split end was out. You know what I mean? So I can't bring myself to do it with CJ Uzoma. Uzoma's not even top 20 in any of the stats we care about except touchdowns. Not in receptions, not in targets, not in target share, not in ADOT, not in yards per route run, not for snap share, not for yards, not for receptions, not for literally anything. So for me, that's such a coin flip, touchdown or no touchdown guy that I'm out. So there you go.
So it's safe to say Uzama might have the Tanyan tumble.
I mean, he is in perfect position for it, And the thing is, people are like, people keep coming to me. They're like, "Oh yeah, well, Burrow likes him in the red zone. He's, those are people just looking at the box score,
50-yard touchdowns.
right? Exactly. He has
The box score grinders, man.
Dude, he's not top 20 in end zone targets. He's not top 20 in red zone targets. He has 1 end zone target. He has 5 red zone targets on the season. Ricky Seals-Jones had like 4 last week. Like Ricky Seals-Jones has, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You would think that if he's this big red zone target, that he would have more than that on the season, or he would like 1 end zone target. He has 5 touchdowns and 1 end zone target. That right there is a red flag,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
This actually leads in perfectly into mine. And that's Robert Tonyan. This is a very week 8 specific I'm nervous about, because I think after this week, Robert Tonyan fades into obscurity and we don't even need to talk about him because he's only had 1 week of relevance. But Davante Adams is out. Alan Lazard is out. We don't really do news on this show. So this is the perfect time. Those guys are out for COVID, or at least we assume that they're going to be. You would who is going to catch passes? And the natural progression, especially after last week, Tanya went, I think, 653-1. You're like, all right, boom. Tanya's going to be in there. It's going to be Aaron Jones, because who else do they have? They have Old Man Cobb and they have some younger guys. And I don't even know if MVS is going to be active for
probably not
Thursday. Probably not. Yeah, coming off IR, just activated off IR. So now I feel like I want to use the unstoppable force meets an immovable object, but it feels so inept right here. But Arizona Cardinals are number 1 against tight ends. Like, I personally believe that the Cardinals said we need to figure out how to go against George Kittle. They got Isaiah Simmons, and I'm just completely blank. And Zane, man, who was the other linebacker they just got?
Zane Collins.
Zane Collins, thank you. And so they really were like, we need to shore up this linebacking crew specifically for tight ends. And Isaiah Simmons is damn good against tight ends. And here they are being number 1 in the NFL against tight end. Robert Tonyan is going to go up there. So now it becomes, not only is it the nervousness about Tonyan, but like what does this offense look like outside of Aaron Jones? I keep hearing the stat that technically Aaron Rodgers is at better stats when Davante Adams isn't in the game, which sounds absolutely insane to me. But I'm nervous about it. I know that as somebody this week that has Waller on a bye, I did everything in my power to trade for a tight end. Luckily, I traded for Hawkinson. But it was very difficult to even send picks and players for Hawkinson when I saw that Tonyan was a free agent. And what if I was able to get him in waivers? That would feel stupid to do anything over here. But Tonyan just feels like a total trap. And yet he's still going to go off because it's just going to happen that way. I don't know what else. What other options do they have in the passing game?
Randall Cobb, Equanimous St. Brown. I mean,
Amari Rodgers maybe, but
the thing is, it's like the biggest boom bust play of all time because he could do well, but like you said, we're talking about a situation where people are coming to me and they're saying, oh, well, they haven't played anybody for tight end. Well, this defense was the 6th best defense versus the tight end last year. You know what I mean? And they played better tight ends last year. And they brought in Devondre Campbell to kind of show Isaiah Simmons how to do things. And Isaiah Simmons, and they decided to let Devondre Campbell leave who ended up actually going to the Packers, and he's now graded as the number one linebacker on PFF. So
we have a linebacker, ladies and gentlemen. It only took since what Blake Martinez left, and that was not great for coverage.
Right. So for me, if possible, I'm avoiding both Ertz, who is playing Devondre Campbell, and Tonyan, who's playing Isaiah Simmons. Because the thing about Tonyan is that if you went back and actually watched those highlights and watched the situations and looked at the stats, his biggest value was his ability to not be a focal point of the defense. Yeah. He would you're Kev, you're a Packers fan. He sneaks out. He sneaks out. He finds soft spots in zones. Last year, he only had one contested catch on the season. Does that sound like a guy that's lining up man to man and beating Isaiah Simmons to the spot? Like, it's not really his thing. Like Jonnu Smith is the same way. Jonnu Smith is great after the catch. He's good at finding soft spots, but he's not a guy that beats you with route running and man to man. And that's the concern for Tonyan in this particular matchup, because he would score all those touchdowns because people forgot about him. Well, with everyone hurt, no one's forgetting about this big boy. So I'm a little bit concerned with that matchup, that they might just take him away and say, yeah, beat us with, Equineme St. Brown. And, I don't know, maybe they'll call Devin Funchess up from wherever he's playing basketball right now or whatever. I'm not sure what their plan is. Amari Rogers. I'm interested to see, do you think Randall Cobb will actually play like the flanker role, or does he just stay in the slot? Kev.
I mean, they probably throw St. Brown out and tether him. He's big enough to probably do it. And then probably keep Cobb in the slot and then just kind of figure it out. They've still got activated Malik Taylor too. So they're trying to get options right now. But, it's Green Bay's basically playing with house money right now. If Green Bay wins, Aaron Rodgers is, just adding to his legacy. If the Cardinals win, they didn't have Adams or Lazard. So, it doesn't matter for Green Bay, honestly. I mean, I don't know what the line has shifted to. I know at one point it was like 7 or 6.5 for the Cardinals. So, yeah. I think it's more going to be a Cobb game, but I think Aaron Jones is going to get a lot more run. I think Dylan's going to get a lot more run too, because he's shown that he's pretty adept pass catcher when given the opportunity. So it's pretty much an all hands on deck kind of scenario for Green Bay right now. Just whatever they can get out of anybody, they're not going to be picky. They're going to take it, and we'll see what happens. But I think if you're going to bank on anybody in this offense, doing anything, I think Cobb is probably the safest bet outside of the guys that you're already rostering.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cobb is the guy that, these guys for years have had little plays and little moves that work. And we see it now. We've been seeing it where it's like they bust out a little double move or something and score on it. I think that they're probably working on this week, focusing on bringing a lot of those back and, saying, okay, this is working, this isn't. And they're going to, kind of just key on third down situations where they can get Cobb to do something that they know that he can beat a guy one-on-one, So I think you're right on that. Cobb is a guy I'll if I do DFS, I don't always, but if I do, I'll definitely have Cobb on at least one team.
Might be my captain, actually.
That's what I was just thinking. He's probably a solid captain.
Yeah. Again, not financial advice.
I'm not a financial advisor.
I am not and nor do I play one on TV or on StreamYard or YouTube. All right. Coop, it's on you, buddy.
Yes. So the guy that I am nervous about is Noah Fant, right? So this situation here has been pretty good for Fant in terms of like he's playing a full snap share. He's running a lot of routes. One thing he doesn't do that I wish he did more of is play actual like slot or wide receiver. He really doesn't do that. Like the most you see is maybe 10 snaps in the slot or wide receiver. Some of these guys, Ricky Seals-Jones and Travis Kelce, are playing 40, like 50. Kyle Pitts is playing 73% of his snaps at wide receiver. Mike Gesicki is a wide receiver. So it's like, it's kind of sad to see that Fant lines up in line. It just makes you more susceptible to get jammed, lower ADOT routes or whatever. But that's not the big thing I'm scared about. The big thing I'm scared about is Jerry Jeudy coming back, because that kind of solidifies that they're going to do the 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end. But now it's no longer Tim Patrick being the second target. It's Jerry Jeudy. And if Jeudy can capture his target share back or something close to it, then now Fant is the third man at best. And that is kind of problematic for any tight end. I mean, we talk about that all the time, that you got to be a top 2 target to have true upside. So I think people that thought they were going to just sit pretty with Fant given the last couple of weeks, again, they got to be getting a little bit nervous that this guy's coming back. And then now it's going to be 3 wide receivers and 2 pass catching backs versus, some other situations out there. Like Kelsey's always been 1 wide receiver and a back in Kelsey, or like, Mark Andrews, where he's the top dog. And then there's 1 wide receiver, and then they're using like a fullback and a running back and another guy. It's like, this offense is going to turn with Albert Okwuegbunam out. This offense is going to turn into full on 11 personnel. And one of the things that I think goes often underrated is that having a blocking tight end in the mix is kind of good for the pass catching tight end, because when the blocking tight end comes in, a wide receiver comes out, because you don't bring the blocking tight end in to take the running back out, right? So when you bring in the blocking, that's what's great for Mark Andrews. I see Gary doing the math up there. You got 5 linemen, a quarterback, a running back, and a tight end, right? That leaves you with 3 wide receivers. So assuming you're going to go big sets, you're keeping those first guys in there, right? The running back, the quarterback, all the linemen, and the tight end. So when you bring in the fullback, Patrick Ricard, that brings a wide receiver out. And then when you bring in Nick Boyle, that takes another wide receiver out. So basically, Mark Andrews is the best patch. It's Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown on the field, and that's it. That's actually great for the tight end. So that's why when I look at like Albert Okwuegbunam being out, he's more of a pass catcher. But, when you have another blocking tight end, that's actually great. Where in this situation, it's going to be all 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers. It's actually not good for the tight end.
Yeah, and he takes a lot off the top of Fant too, because when Okwuegbunam was in there, Fant was playing like 60 to 70% of snaps. I mean, with him out, he's been hitting that 80% kind of benchmark. Now, I mean, it gets to the point where he's a high-end tight end too. I mean, he's not getting the requisite amount of routes run to be able to get what matters, and then add on top of that Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, all these guys, those 2 pass catching running backs, and Gordon and Javonte Williams. This is the kind of muddied mess that we were kind of prognosticating in the beginning of the season, where you had all these guys. Could somebody bring them all together? And Teddy Bridgewater, who has struggled the past couple weeks too. So, that doesn't help anymore. There's just a lot against Noah Fant right now. If you have had Noah Fant, which I have him in a couple, leagues, this is my second tight end actually, because I drafted Kelsey and I had Noah Fant and I was starting him, with Kelsey in a couple leagues, tight end premium. He had a couple good weeks, but it's hard to start him now with all these guys coming back. There's just a lot of traffic.
Yeah, a lot of traffic.
I'm scared.
Yeah, don't play in traffic, kids.
That's right.
Especially if you're Noah Fant. Anyway, so we went through the players or situations we're excited to watch, the players that we're nervous about in week 8. Let's get to something that we want to get a little more information on. So I think Gary went first. I went first. Coop, you're going back to back here, brother.
I actually refuse to go until you play the clip.
Oh, yeah. That has to be the clip that we play before this question.
The new information. We're looking
information, man. New shit has come to light.
Yeah, we're looking for new information. New information has come to light. This is one that I'm kind of interested in. I think it's actually flying under the radar a little bit, right? Where people are saying so mine is the Browns backfield, and I feel like people are saying, "Oh, Nick Chubb's back," so drop Darris Johnson. He's not going to play. It's just going to be Nick Chubb, and I don't think that this Browns offense even wants it to be like that. Kareem Hunt wasn't just playing pass snaps; like he was getting a lot of run snaps, and with Darris Johnson, the way he ran last week, I see no reason why they wouldn't use 2 capable backs if they have them. You got to put yourself in the shoes of an NFL coach, right? Like an NFL coach doesn't think in terms of, oh, we have one guy and we just use that guy. Well, I guess they used to, like the Chiefs used to, with like Priest Holmes and then Larry Johnson, just run one guy until he's in the ground and then discard him and use the next guy. I guess the Vikings kind of do that too. But this team, I don't think this is that kind of team. I think they look at it and say, the more capable backs we have, the fresher our guys can be and the better they can be. So if we can use Nick Chubb and then use another guy and then come back when the defense is tired and use Nick Chubb, that's more valuable than just Nick Chubb. So I'm actually interested to see if Darris Johnson can get that Kareem Hunt role and can maintain some value, because to me, in that the way that he ran and the way that Kareem Hunt's looked and the way that Chubb's looked and the way that Darris Johnson's looked, half of that, or half of, even, I'm not even kidding, even a third of that Browns offensive role is probably better than the full-time job of probably 5 or 6 teams in this league, right? Like you look at some of these teams, they don't even run the ball for a handful of times, right? Like Miles Sanders has games where he ran the ball like 4 times. You know, Michael Carter, whoever, like the Texans, some of these Texans games, they run the ball like 4 times. So, you know, like I would actually rather have a running back getting 1/3 of the work on the Browns than whoever the leading rusher is for the Texans, or whoever the leading rusher is for, you know, I don't know, some of these other garbage teams, of which there are many.
Who do you think is their pass catcher going to be? I know that you just said that he does more than that, but I'm just curious. Do you think that it'll be?
Yeah, I think what they would do is just like, I think for them, they look at it in terms of plays rather than situations. So I think they would say, I think they would say, okay, it's 3rd down. Let's dial up a play that involves Nick Chubb, right? Yeah. But then I would think they would turn around and say, okay, it's Nick Chubb just busted off a nice run, and now it's 2nd and 1, and throw Darris in there, or throw him in there for this run. I think that Chubb will get all the what I like to call high leverage situations. Okay. Like if you look at Zeke and Pollard, Zeke gets all the high leverage, right? He gets the goal line, he gets the pass downs, but then Pollard comes in to spell him, and Pollard has like the 15th most rushing yards of any running back, and he's already had his bye. You know what I mean? Like in these offices, you can get more out of these guys than in other ones. So I'm not dropping Darris Johnson just because Chubb's back. I mean, I want to see it. That's what I'm saying. I want to see more information. But next week I'll drop him if he, if it's all Chubb, which would be awesome. Like I hope it's all Chubb, because that's better for fantasy football, right? But if it is split, then I'm still interested in Darris Johnson. I'm in some deep leagues, boys. I'm, the Scott Fishbowl, Gary. When you won that friggin' league, you were scraping. You know what I mean? It's a scrappy league.
The Jacob Hollisters of the world.
The Jacob Hollisters of the world. You're starting Jacob Hollister out here, man. Darris Johnson could be a huge difference. I mean, I started like last year. I was starting Ty Johnson every week. I was very close to starting Demetric Felton because I had nobody. So it's a dog eat dog world out there in some leagues, and Darris Johnson's a guy that you should hold on to at least to see when Kareem Hunt's coming back. What's the timeline? 6 weeks minimum.
Yeah, I mean, Darris Johnson, I mean, clearly showed he should have he's not just going to be stashed away and, just covered in mothballs. Like, they're not going to do that I don't think they're going to do that with him. I mean, when Chubb comes back, I feel like they want to manage him a little more, but Chubb is going to get the all important, high value touches and all this stuff there. So, Demetric Felton will certainly get some work in. We've seen him with his receiving role in the slot too. Not your typical running back, though. He did get a couple carries on Thursday Night Football. But yeah, just keep holding on to Darris Johnson, because you never know how it's going to shake up. For all we know, something could happen to Chubb, and he could be right back out there. And with Hunt down, that's somebody where you would really, really regret dropping him. Just no, Nick Chubb's back. Okay, toss him aside, and then you go pick up, whatever dusty running back you feel like. I'll go ask JB who the dusty running back of the week to add is might be David Johnson if we're looking at the Mark Ingram trade. But definitely want to keep a hold of Darris Johnson.
I just want to add something. So I told you guys this after our pod, I think last week, that you guys talk about stuff, and I actually act while we are on the podcast about stuff you guys say, because I genuinely trust your guys' input, your analysis, all that stuff. I literally just went and made a trade, sent an offer for Darris Johnson in one of my dynasty leagues, because it's just like, this guy could be nothing, and I'm giving like one of my last like dynasty picks for 2023 is what I offered with like Ricky Seals Jones. But it's just like, hey, if this pops, like if if Hunt doesn't come back, like I just think that that's super spot on. Like you could just have something that helps you. That 1 week's worth of a running back is worth so much more than we give credit for.
Yup. As a zero RB guy, yup.
Totally.
Right. For sure.
I mean, that's how you piece.
Huge.
That's how you piece together. You know, you could piece together running back weeks. It's never been easier to be able to get a running back off of waivers, play him, stash him for the next guy. You know, you don't always have to have these. You know, in the last year's Myles Gaskins or anything like that. You don't have to have all those. You don't have to hit on the James Robinsons. You know, you don't have to hit on all these guys. You can literally just pick up, you know, a Jamal Williams and play him. You can pick up a, you know, Ty Johnson or whatever the case has been this week. And I'll talk about that, as gross as that is. But yeah, you can pick up these running backs and just get decent production out of these guys. That's all you really need.
Yeah, we were on pace for one of our fastest shows, but it looks like we have a couple questions. If you guys want to take a little detour, quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So just traded away AJ Brown, Joe Mixon, Michael Thomas for Dalvin Cook and Keenan Allen. Did I win?
Follow up
in the game of football. I have Diggs and Ridley as my wide receivers. In the game of football, you know, we'll see if you did win at the end of the season, but I'd say it's a relative win if Keenan Allen can get back to what, you know, Michael Thomas is kind of a wash right now just because of his status is literally up in the air. Like,
yeah. I think it depends what your flex is. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the season, if it all boils down, like if this is a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver league, then, you know, I would think I like having Dalvin. I'm assuming you have another really good running back if you're, you know, doing some trade like this. Dalvin,
right,
that running back, and then you're starting Diggs, Ridley, Keenan Allen. That's your starting lineup. I love that, you know.
Yeah.
But if you're taking somebody in off the bench and kind of making your lineup worse overall with a lower quality of guys, then, you know, I mean, you're definitely playing it risky, you know, giving rid of your depth like that. But I don't know, Gary, what do you think? Which side would you want to be on?
I like have thought about this since you first posted it like 9 minutes ago a bunch, and I feel like it's 48-52. You got the 48, but that's only because of where Keenan is now. Assuming that Keenan is going to be a top 15 and that AJ Brown is going to end up as like a top, we'll just say 12 because, you know, where he started out. So
alpha season, baby.
Dalvin's going to have these pop games, and I'm terrified that pop game is going to be this coming week, but that's for personal reasons. Michael Thomas, I have no, like, I almost feel like you can put Michael Thomas out of this because does anybody feel like the way Jameis is playing and this offense is running that Michael Thomas is going to do anything above wide receiver 3 rest of the season? I don't know.
I'll tell you what, if Michael Thomas is anything at all, then you can drop every single one of those Saints pass catchers off your fantasy team and off the Niagara Falls and off the edge of the earth. Because if Michael Thomas comes back from injury after not practicing, not doing anything, and he's awesome, and these guys have been doing nothing the entire year, then just forget about him, you know?
So if Michael Thomas, I almost just want to just like put a blinder over him and just say AJ Brown for Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook for Keenan. Like that's an even trade, and that's spot on, especially if you have solid wide receivers, which I think Diggs and Ridley are, which is what's like his next text, in which case Dalvin is the best player in this group.
My Coop Scoop video coming out this week. I rarely give legitimate like player advice because I mostly talk about concepts. But this week I straight up say Keenan Allen is a buy low.
Yeah,
I think he is. I truly think he is. Yeah.
Don't tell everybody that Cooper Kupp is a buy low or sell high, I should say. Don't do that. Do not recommend that strategy.
Yeah, I mean, Kev, with that tweet, Kev, you basically just put your back on the wall and you were like, I'm fighting all of yous.
I was Jon Snow in the Battle of Bastards. I pulled out my sword.
Right.
I was ready to go.
Robert Woods is about to
we got one more. I'll read this one for you guys. So we got PPR Keeper League and was rejected to get A-Rob, offering a third in Gallup. Kev, do you think that's a legitimate trade, or how do you feel about that?
I mean, based on body of work, I mean, you got to figure that Chicago offense has got to get back. I mean, this is PPR. Okay, PPR keeper.
There's a lot that goes into a keeper.
Yeah.
Are there penalties?
Yeah, there's. I just don't know if there's enough context to be it. Just because I don't know if it's like a third. It's a third next year, I would assume.
A third next year, man. I mean, it's like if you're only keeping 4 or 5 guys, I would love to have the third. I would take Gallup in the third. I feel like.
Wait. You rejected a third?
I think it would have to be Dynasty. I think maybe it's Dynasty he's talking about, because if it's a third round Dynasty pick, that's kind of just like a throw in.
If it's Dynasty, it's the A-Rob side all day, and I almost don't blame that trade getting rejected there, because I just think it's not enough.
Yeah.
Just based on the body of work.
These players are on different teams. So you're just saying, I want the upside of the perennial awesome versus the guy with upside.
Yeah, I do like going for these guys on like these loaded teams that I think are good players that are going to be cap casualties. So I do like Michael Gallup. Like, I know like people often make the mistake of going after guys that are the best wide receivers on bad teams, especially like rebuilding teams. Like people like Preston Williams, people like Robert Foster. You know what I mean? Like people
Darius Slayton.
Darius Slayton. People liked Kenny Britt on the Rams.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know, Terrell Pryor on the Browns. Like people go after these guys thinking that's the guy, but a lot of times what ends up happening is the Cowboys would love to keep Michael Gallup and they can't. And right now there's not enough targets for him. But I mean, this guy's he's a third round pick that has 1,000-yard season under his belt. Like I'll definitely take Michael Gallup in Dynasty. You know, like he could land somewhere and then he's the number 1 wide receiver somewhere. And now all of a sudden he's back to being a 1,000-yard guy.
Yep. Yeah, he screams like a second team. You know, he's going to get a boost on whatever team he, goes with there. I like Gallup there. I just don't. Yeah, with Allen Robinson, I mean, I think he's still only 28. Wide receivers in Dynasty last way longer than running backs do. So I still think he would probably have a good 2-3 years. I mean, who knows? He could be dust for all we know. But we're not going to figure that out until either Matt Nagy gets fired or Justin Fields finds something. Maybe.
I have a question for you guys, and normally I wait for off the air, but I think that our discussions are spot on, and I like people being able to hear them, to be perfectly honest. I just traded Julio in a 2023 second in a 10-team Dynasty League for Dalton Schultz, and I always felt like tight end was like my weak spot. And I will preface this with, I think that Dalton Schultz is going to be a top 8 tight end for a long time because I believe in that. Even though the people say the Gallup thing, I think Gallup's going to be gone. And then all of a sudden, am I crazy to do that? Does that seem like a thing? Like I've already, like it's already been processed 2 days ago.
Like it seems wild on the surface, but I mean, when you're looking at Julio Jones, he's banged up every year. Yeah. He can't stay on the field. He's on his new team here where you see all these players that if they're on a team for, a long time, and this is kind of just a out of nowhere narrative really, but players that go onto their second teams and kind of start to fall off a cliff a little bit. We know Julio's always had injury concerns, especially with his, ankles and his, soft tissues and stuff like that. So I don't think it's crazy. I just think, I don't know, who was Julio in a 2023 third? Second. I
have AJ Brown.
I mean, hey, so your conviction. If you're convinced, if you value Dalton Schultz, who am I to say? I mean, if that's what you value, I'm fine with it. That Dalton Schultz could be a guy for all we know that maybe they say, what, we're not really, we don't want to really deal with Blake Jarwin. We want to give him a fair shake at a job. Granted, it's still you're probably the third wide receiver. Who knows? Maybe they get out of Amari Cooper or trade Gallup or something. That could certainly open up more for Schultz. But I don't hate it. I just don't know if it's a move I'd make, but I don't hate it.
Fair enough. We can move on. I wanted to get your input.
Yeah. So we can we'll get a little. We want to talk something gross here, and I can't believe I'm going to talk about this on purpose. But Something I am looking to get more information on. I guess I'll bite the bullet. The Jets, the New York Jets, while Zach Wilson is out. So we know Zach Wilson going to be on the shelf for a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks. So Mike White came in and basically threw to the running backs all game. Ty Johnson and Michael Carter were the top 2 targets on the team. They brought in Joe Flacco from the Philadelphia Eagles. Whoever the starter between Flacco and White, who knows? But we know Flacco certainly targets the running back out of the backfield. So I think that's going to open up a door for Michael Carter to get a little bit more run and become a more multifaceted running back. He's already has a kind of a canyon between him and any of the other running backs as far as actually running the ball. I believe he had 72% of the snaps last week. Had 9 targets last week for 67 yards on 8 catches, 37 yards on the ground when they got blown out by the Patriots. But he ran 60% of the routes too. So that's pretty interesting. If Michael Carter's going to be out there, and not only that, but I think it makes Ty Johnson a little more relevant too. I want to see if they're going to be highlighting the running backs out of the passing game more, because Corey Davis's route share dropped dramatically down to about the 65% range, and that's not what you want. You have all these other receivers too. Elijah Moore had a rushing touchdown last week too. Keelan Cole, Jamison Crowder ran 91% of the routes. So it looks like he's pretty static right there. If Corey Davis, the wide receiver that you paid, isn't like the static wide receiver, granted, I think he got banged up too, but still, you're running out Keelan Cole. You're running out all these wide receivers. I mean, I think it opens the door for more running back work, in New York. So I want to see if that continues with a possible quarterback change with Flacco, Mike White, whoever they pick up off the street.
Yeah, man. Flacco just doesn't interest me. I mean, good God. I'd rather just see Mike White, just see whatever it is. I don't care what it is, just whatever it is, But what do you think about? You'd rather see Flacco?
I would. I think that this a wide receiving core like this can put up a fight with a veteran presence.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, he's got to get up to speed, get it all together. I don't think he can join the team till Friday, so we'll see. I mean, Flacco still has the arm, but. What do you guys think about Mekhi Becton tweeting "Unleash Mims"? Mekhi Becton seems to be a Denzel Mims fan.
We can only get so erect.
I would just want to see them. I just want to see. Yeah, I mean, your boy Jamison Crowder is the one gumming up the works there, because he played a full snap share, which means Elijah Moore can't, which means Mims can't, and they paid Crowder too much money for him to sit. So.
Hey, keep in mind, Joe Flacco was there. Granted, it's a new scheme, but Joe Flacco was there last year too. So, for Mims, drop it like it's hot.
There you have it. Move if you want to.
It'll be interesting to see. I think it's like a perfect spot to put it here to see what Mike White does, not only for this week, and then what we assume will be Flacco next week, which still it makes no sense with Flacco, and I don't even know what the hell you traded for him. Just see what
Mike White sounds like if you're creating a player in Madden, that's like the default name they give you.
Yeah. But I'm excited to see. I mean,
when you set a record on a pinball machine, and you just hit the button over and over, you just hit the button and whatever goes in there. Mike White, you either names it AAA or Mike White.
Love it.
All
right. Just wait, Jamison Crowder with Flacco. He's about to bust out.
Jamison Crowder.
Take us home, brother Gary.
Yeah. All right. I had Kenneth Gainwell in my players I'm really nervous about, but I moved them down here. I feel like with Miles Sanders, there's only one outcome for week 9, but we're talking about week 8. And right now for week 8, it's going to be Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott. We don't know how long Miles Sanders is out. Kevin got me on this train, and I'm all aboard. I felt like Kenneth Gainwell is like the guy. He looked awesome. Best pass catcher coming into this rookie class. And they just haven't used him much. Like he's just been there. Like if you're a box score watcher and you're looking at last game, you're like, oh no, look at what Kenneth Gainwell did. No, he got that like before Sanders even went out. He got that passing touchdown. And after that, why I'm so concerned, but this is more about the information, is I felt like that, they gave Boston Scott more carries. He was 7 for 24, even though they were down, when yet Gainwell was only got 5 carries. And this was for the most part after Miles Sanders went out, which was pretty early in the game. Like I get both of them can catch passes. Gainwell he's a much better receiver, as we just said. I just don't I feel like I want some clarity to see what they're actually going to do, because right now it's so muddled that I actually traded Gainwell away this week because I felt like this was going to be his peak his value, because Sanders went down. And that's not to include the fact that they said that Jordan Howard is going to be activated, I think, off IR, and Sanders should be back either next week or the week after. And all of a sudden, you just this crazy backfield. Oh, and this has we haven't even touched on the fact that Jalen Hurts runs the ball more than any of them. Like I just don't know what you do with this backfield. So this is much more of a temper expectations unless we see that they're willing to utilize them in their respective roles. But I think that Boston Scott is going to be the James Conner, and Kenny Gainwell is going to be the Chase Edmonds in a poor man's version, very poor man's version of the Cardinals. I just came up with that right now, and I'm actually pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit more room now for a pass catcher, just because now we don't have Zach Ertz there. Dallas Goedert, we know, is running routes on about 87% of dropbacks in his first game without Zach Ertz off the team. The Eagles are scaling back their use of 12 personnel and going into more 3 wide receiver sets. So I feel like there's still room there for a Kenny Gainwell to be able to get out there and pass and run pass routes. So I'm pretty, excited. He ran routes on 60%, almost 60% of dropbacks too. So I'm pretty encouraged about Gainwell. Boston Scott, I feel like, is going to muddy that up. And just in an aside, if you guys haven't heard Nick Sirianni do a press conference, I would highly suggest you do so. That dude has no concept of nuance, or he literally says everything. He goes into way more detail than you do.
Sorry to rush you, but I actually got to rock and roll, guys. I got to go.
You're good, man. Now I just want to
see Coop.
Press conference.
Cheers.
All right.
See you
later, man. Yeah. So I would highly suggest, checking that out, certainly. But yeah. All right. Well, we're heading out here. So, here we go. You know what? We got one more class. We're here. Why not?
He is messaging to get my AJ Brown.
Okay. Diggs
this is
or
the
Evans.
league I just traded Julio. That's Jared. He just tried to FaceTime me, and I told him I was finishing the pod, and he Kevin,
you never know what's going to happen.
Let's do this live. Can we do this live? Let's do this.
We can do this live.
So AJ Brown's by far my best asset. I'm on a team that's struggling, but I think that AJ Brown's a top 5, if not top 7, dynasty wide receiver asset, right? Jared thinks I don't care about Evans. We both know that, Jared. But Diggs, who I do like, I think is still at least maybe a tier, if not 2 below. This is the same league I traded Julio in a 2023 second to get Schultz, just to kind of give a little valuation. What would you disregard? You have no idea what Jared's roster is. Diggs plus what? Either picks and or players. You can give commensurate kind of values to get AJ Brown. What? JJ Watt's having season-ending surgery? Sorry, that just came through.
Yeah, not much. I don't think. Okay. I think Diggs is just
backfired. Thanks, Kevin.
I'm sorry. I just think Diggs is just. I love AJ Brown. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't have his jersey in the back just because I hate the guy. But Diggs, I feel like, is incredibly consistent. I think he's got a lot more better football to play this year, and going forward with Josh Allen. I think that rapport is awesome. I just think that you don't have to add a lot to Diggs for AJ Brown. If you're going back and wanting that younger receiver, you could probably add a pick, like a second round pick, or maybe like a player like a lesser. I'm blind
I think
on
like a
names.
Diggs and a 2.
Diggs in a 2, or like, I don't know, a mid-tier wide receiver or something like that. We could probably get that. I think that could get it done. I'm way higher on Diggs. I love Brown, but I'm higher on Diggs as far as a dynasty asset. I believe he's 27, so I still think, that's 27, 28. I think he's got a lot of good football left. It's wide receivers. I don't really worry much about age until you're like Adam Thielen.
Jared, send me Diggs in your 2022, and I'll accept it right now.
There you go.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to head out here. But again, thank you so much for watching. We will be back for Sunday, the calm before the storm for week 8. Myself, Gary, and Britt Flynn answering your start and sits. There is nothing on the screen, Gary.
Well, I was going to point at Coop, and then you said Britt Flynn, and I was like, well, that looks even weirder.
Talk about your all-time backfires now. All right. Well, we are out of here. Have a great week 8, and we will see you hopefully on Sunday right here, youtube.com/lightning round, or on Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Till then, have a great week.